Yeah, welcome, everyone. Yeah, when we get into the teachings on no self, it's easy to kind of get lost in the philosophy and um, in the fact that within the different Buddhist schools, even within Tibetan Buddhism, different approaches and different definitions and different ways to describe this. But the the basic message is very simple. There is no I here. There is no findable I here. There is no findable self here. In this moment, there wasn't one in the previous moment, and there will be not one in the next moment. It just doesn't exist. Of course, there is a sense of self, and we looked at that last time. Sense of self, and kind of the invitation was for the last weeks after the last meeting to be curious about that. What's the sense of self? How do I appear? How to believe I exist, or the I exist, the me exist? Particularly in situation when we are challenged, when the contraction in our body is very strong, and we're using the 4-point analysis, which is one of the ways to do this self-inquiry, looking for the self and not finding it. Last time we covered the first step, which is called identifying the object of negation. Like really starting to notice, how does the I appear to me? And today we will look at the following steps. Once we have identified that sense of self, we have to check, does it really exist? And that's what we do in the step 2 and 3 and 4. But sometimes I imagine that many of us, many of you have received teachings on this. And what I also assume when I say there's no I, there's no self, that you don't hear there's no experience, because that would be stupid to say. Of course, there's experience. There's experience here and there's experience there. So there's sensations, sounds, feelings, thoughts, all that what you experience. But the suggestion here, or the message is, there's no separate experience there. There's no one behind the scene being in control or being the victim of that experience. That one who has an experience, that one who has feelings, that one who makes decisions, that one is unfindable. That one is made up, whereas Lama Yeshe says it's an hallucination. It's like a dream. Yeah, so a dream exists as a dream image, but there's nothing behind it. You could say it's not real. You could also say it's real because there is a dream image, but there's nothing tangible behind it. So the same with the sense of self. The sense of self exists, is a process, a cognitive and an energetic process mingled with each other. So there's thoughts and images and names, and it's mingled together with a contraction in our subtle energy body. So that exists, but there's nothing behind it. That's all it is. It's a process. And that's in neuroscience, it seems what they find is that this process is very much connected what they call the default network. Yeah? So it's called the default network. It's like this loop of self-referencing. So there is a thought, oh, it's my thought. Oh, there's a feeling, oh, it's my feeling. And it is that, that's what we start to question, that there is something behind. So feelings, thoughts, and sensations, they are claimed by something within us. They are claimed by this process. And it seems there's a connection to what they call the default network. So if you take psychedelic drugs, for example, one thing they do is they dissolve this default network. So that's why in a psychedelic drug experience, many people at one point, after they go through the fear of death, yeah, because we are so much identified with this process that when it starts to dissolve, it feels like death, because we feel that's who we are. So, but many people on a psychedelic drug experience, when this default network disappears or dissipates, they come into an experience which they would call boundarylessness or oneness, or yeah, something like that. And there's actually also a possibility to weaken the default network through magnates. So just temporary. So just poof, yeah. And that's also interesting to read about that, because people then have a sense of that boundaryless interconnectedness, openness. It is that process of selfing, this process of creating a sense of self, which is separate, which creates the illusion of separation. So it creates the dualistic split, the distortion of reality. So it creates the illusion that you are somewhere in here, behind your eyes, or it's in different places and at different times, but you are in here, kind of probably within your skin. That's the sense. And that you look out at a world which is separate from you. In this dualistic distortion, this distortion of reality, according to the Buddhist teachings, not only the Buddhist teachings, is the cause for grasping. So there's a dualistic distortion. I'm here. There's everything else, which is not me. And if I like it, I want to have it. That's one way of grasping. And if I don't like it, I want to get rid of it. That's the other way of grasping. And this is suffering. So that and it creates all the difficult emotions: fear, anger, exaggerated desire. So according to the Buddhist teachings, the exit out of struggle, out of suffering, is to realize there is nobody in here. There's no I in here. There's no self in here. That undermines all reactivity. That's something which takes some time to explore, to see to see it yourself. how when you suffer, all kinds of suffering, all kinds of struggle, that the cause, the root cause for that is not other people, not your past, not what's happening. The root cause of that is this process of selfing, identifying with that sense of self. So there's no I, there's no self. Always good to kind of pause when you hear something like that. What does it do with you? Is it confusing? Is it does it sound good? Like kind of, wow, yeah, there's no self. Gosh, that's wonderful. If there's suffering right now in you, what is suffering there is the imaginary I. I almost said you are not suffering, but it's a bit difficult. And also when I say the real you, but it's difficult. But definitely, at least temporary, we always have this possibility of relief available when for a moment we drop the sense of I, the sense of center, the sense of core, the sense that there's a core inside of you. There is just experience. There's feelings, sensations, sounds. And it's mysterious, amazing. Sounds, sensation, feelings, thoughts. Such a mystery and such a miracle to receive what you're receiving right now. Thoughts, feelings, sensations, sounds, breath. Breath is happening. So one of the words which one could use to this field of experience is a word I got from Alex Berson, transitory network. Transitory network. The transitory network is sometimes divided into 5 aggregates. It's just a term for all the processes which are part of your experience right now. The streams of the 5 sense data, what your mind does with it. And this transitory network is an open process. So if you become aware of this moment as transitory, many processes happening, which are all interconnected with each other, a bit like the weather. Yeah? So the phenomenon weather is a transitory network of many things, many processes, all interconnected, but also the phenomenon weather is an open process. You can't find the boundaries of it. So if you go into a certain situation, weather situation on this planet, then it's easy to understand, to see. It's connected with all the different systems on this planet, but also beyond. It's connected and influenced, and it's part of the sun and the moon and the whole universe and so on. So similar, the the network of processes which are experienced right now through you has no boundary. And there's another thing in that, and I want to bring that into our first meditation, an awareness that all these processes which are part of your experience right now, they are experienced within mind, within consciousness. Everything you experience right now, also what you could call the outer world, is actually, in a way, you could say, an inner experience. You experience the outer world only as an inner experience, an experience within consciousness. Everything you experience right now is experienced or appears within consciousness, within awareness. In that way, you could say, this moment is like a dream. In a dream, everything what is being experienced is happening within the dream of the conscious, of the dreamer, is happening within the consciousness of the dreamer. So a dream is happening within the consciousness of the dreamer. So it's an inner experience. In exactly the same way, the experience you have right now is an appearance within consciousness. For example, the visual image, if you would go into neuroscience, the visual image you experience right now is a mental hologram created by your frontal cortex. It's an inner experience. You never see an outer world. You always see just the images which are created by your brain, you would say in neuroscience. Not so much in Buddhism, maybe, but it's a good start. So in this processes which you experience right now, they change moment by moment. There's nothing solid there, nothing concrete. And there is one process within all of that, which is the sense of self, or which I call selfing, which claims to have a very important role. It's not modest. It's not like saying, okay, I'm just like one of the many processes happening. I'm the one who's experiencing all this. I'm in the center of all of this. And I'm in control, or I try to control. I'm the one who makes decisions. I'm the one who directs the attention. But if you look, then you start to see, it's just one of the many processes. And there's nothing behind it. It's just that, it's a process created by the conceptual mind. So as Lama Yeshe says in the quote I read last time, it seems to be outrageous to claim this initially. Yeah. So a kind of natural response, inner response to the sentence, there's no I, there's no self here, could be that's completely bullshit, because I am here. I was the one who switched on the computer, and I am the one who is sitting here now and is listening to this. It's obvious. I mean, it's I know who I am. If there's no some kind of response like that, like some kind of confusion about it, or a defensiveness, or like a kind of, oh, I don't understand this, I don't get it, then probably you're not hearing what is being said, because it's really undermining the very core of how we experience each moment. It's questioning that. Okay, so let's settle a bit. If you want, you can adjust your posture a bit. So you take some time to shift from the head into the body, from the doing to being. And if your eyes want to close, you allow that to happen. If your eyes stay open, you have a relaxed gaze. Just sliding or dropping into the felt sense of your body. Initially, even down into your legs and your feet. And it's a gentle process. So you don't need to concentrate. And the breath supports you. So with the in-breaths, it's a bit of emphasis in sliding down or dropping to the belly, into your hands. And maybe your breath can become a little deeper for a few moments. And then with the out breath, a bit like sighting. So your belly can soften and your shoulders. So the sighting of, the work is done. You come home and you sit on the couch. How's the inner weather? And the invitation here is to become aware, to notice, and not do anything. So welcoming, allowing. And of course, often when we bring our attention to the belly or to the chest or our inner life, we might experience some discomfort. And what we do here is, or what the invitation is, to just breathe with everything, to let everything be as it is. Arriving at your own door and greeting yourself as a friend. So that's from a poem expressing the importance of friendliness or kindness when you become aware of your inner life. And the radio station of the narrative self, so that's the constant commentary in your head, will probably continue to broadcast the advertisings but we have always the possibility not to listen so much to it, not to emphasize it so much. So that's why there's the possibility here in this meditation to shift, to drop down from the head into the sense of aliveness in present moment awareness. So you do less, you do less and less. So more resting in present moment awareness. And only when you find yourself caught again in the radio station of the narrative self, you make this gentle gesture back, sliding back, dropping back. Not emphasizing the inner dialogue and the mental images, letting them be. And now I would like to I like to invite you to step more consciously into the temple, into the sacred space of our meeting. If you are a visual person, you can actually imagine that you open a door to a temple, to a gompa, to a meditation hall. And if there are places like this, sacred spaces in your life like this, allow your body to remember how it is to step into a sacred space. And we are doing this together. So we appreciate that we are here together as a Sangha. And emphasize the felt sense in your body. And if that is supportive for you, we invoke or we invite the presence of the Dalai Lama, the Buddha, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, or whatever mentors, symbols are working for you. And again, to enhance the sense of kindness, of unconditional love, of the light, which is bathing you. The loving gaze of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the loving stillness which emanates from masters like Lama Zopa Rinpoche. But you could also invite Jesus or teachers you have met or you haven't met, but they are a light in your life. And you invite them also for all of us. Do this together. And then if that feels genuine for you, we can add bodhicitta, that we're entering this temple as part of our healing path for the benefit of all. And you feel this presence all around you, also from behind. And it is an experience as if you're bathing in the morning sun after a cold night. So you receive, you relax, and you receive. And returning. Resting. And a reminder that whatever you experience right now, sensation, thoughts, feelings, sounds, are appearances within awareness, within consciousness, within mind. Within that, of course, it's valid to distinguish outer and inner, but the experience of the outer is an inner experience. In this way, you could say that this moment is like a dream. All you have is appearances within awareness. And all experiences, sensations, your feelings, are you aware of your feelings, of your mood? They're happening within this field of love. So allow yourself to have an experience of being seen and loved. And if it's difficult for you to have an experience like this, imagine how it would be. Literally, hold the hand of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or having Jesus standing behind you and holding your shoulders. So imagine how it would be. I'm breathing. Everything which feels uncomfortable in you, emotionally or physically, you allow, and it's being held or being seen within this field of unconditioned love, within light. You don't need to particular focus on anything, because sometimes it's good to have a bit of an anchor, like the breath. But the tendency is more towards an open awareness, where everything can just come and go. And you can relax. There's nothing for you to do. Nothing you need to figure out. Just being here. And that happens by itself. It's effortless. Being here just happens. So now I would like to, at the end, coming to the end, I would like to, this word transitory network, transitory network. So just become aware that there's many processes happening, thoughts, sensation, feelings, sounds. And if you look look yourself in this field, which is constantly changing, you can't find the boundary, the end of it. So if you really allow this moment to be what it is, it comes with an experience of vastness, of spaciousness. Just appreciate that everything happens by itself. So even if you don't add anything or you don't take anything away, things just continue to happen. The breath continues to happen, the hearing continues to happen. Feeling sensations continues to happen. And these are all processes which are connected with each other. And there's witnessing of all of this, which is the biggest mystery, the witnessing. Just an opportunity now to open to the mystery that You have an experience. You are here. And just openness. Not doing anything. Just receiving. So within this transitory network of your experience, changing moment by moment, it's all energy, right? It's all vibrating. Even if it stays for a while, maybe you are aware of a certain tension which kind of seems to stay. But if you look closely, this is also vibrating. It's energy. Everything is energy. And within this field, there's no core, there's no center. There's centerlessness. If there's a sense of a core, of a observer or a witness or something like that, then it's easy to see that that is also just an object, just another process you're aware of. Your name and your past and the experience of this body, they are all transitory objects in awareness. And in this boundaryless, centerless space, filled with coming and goings, there's no I. The field is full with everything, with life, but it's empty of an I, of a me, of a separate experience there. There's experience or experiencing, but that experiencing doesn't come from a center, from a core, from something being separate. So rest a bit there. And if there's a sense of a me meditating or me watching or me listening, just become aware that what you mean with that me is also just an experience which comes and goes. It's an object. It's not the subject. There is no subject, no separate me, I. There's only experience. An experience without boundaries. If this confuses you, or there might be even a bit of a fear or like a discomfort, just become aware that that is just another process within the field. Yes, there are thoughts, but there's no thinker. There's feelings, but there's no feeler. Yes, there are the sensations in the body, but there's no owner of the body. Just openness. Just relaxation. Letting go. Falling. Meditating with the heart like the sky. And resting. And then you take your time to, if you have your eyes closed, to open your eyes. Maybe your body wants to stretch a bit, or you want to change your position. And possibly without the sense that now the meditation is finished. But you bring that, you allow this aftermath. And so when you open your eyes, you maybe look at the screen again, just check for yourself that is your experience right now, when you open your eyes, that what you see is separate. Something out there, something separate. So is your experience, I am here in the body? Maybe in the seeing it could be a sense of like having eyes, looking through your eyes at something which is separate. So that is the dualistic split. So you become aware of the dualistic split. And that sense that you are behind your eyes somewhere as the seer, kind of almost reaching out, looking at things, that is this default network. That is this process of selfing. That is what creates the sense of separation. It's the same sense you can have in a dream. Yeah? So in a dream, you can also have a sense of your dream body, of a person who is separate from the rest of the dream. And possibly that's what is happening for you. If you open your eyes and the visual field becomes available, and you have a sense that there's no separation, that it's difficult to describe. The experience that the seeing is not separated from me. Then that is a non-dual experience. Maybe I can describe it in a little better, connecting with maybe experiences you have had. And that is when you are in nature. And suddenly this sense of I am by the beach and I am in the body and the beach is out there somehow disappears. And the waves, they are as close as your own feelings. They're happening in the same place. So most people, some people have it initially with music. Yeah. You would maybe say something like, wow, there was no separation between me and the musicians. There was only music, but there was no separate listener. I was part of the music and I could listen to that music with my whole body. So that's the moments which are quite natural for people. Or in lovemaking, you have moments like that. And that's quite, it's common. So it's not that even if we have not a stable realization of no self, nor the default network, the process of selfing, sometimes gives us a little break. Or it happens in certain situations where it weakens or maybe even completely disappear. And it is those moments in our life where we feel most alive. I mean, nobody who spent a day in the mountains and feel that connectedness and that aliveness comes back and says, this was a horrible day. It's exactly these moments which are actually in a, like they are remembered as the most precious moments in our life. It also sometimes happens in extreme moments, like giving birth or witnessing birth or witnessing death. Like these moments where somehow the situation makes a little gap in the default network. And we are just open. No separation. And what is also quite amazing is to acknowledge in these moments of non-separation, of openness, or at least more openness, it comes always with a sense of love. I mean, not romantic love, but a sense of love, a sense of meaning. Not a meaning which is conceptually, or the meaning of my life is this and this and this, something you need to write down as a slogan or something like that. But these moments are in itself are so meaningful that you don't need to give a conceptual meaning to it. They are full in itself. The question, what is life for, just doesn't arise. It's known directly. That's why these moments are so precious. Sometimes we keep these moments to ourselves. because we have already a sense. If we share this with someone, I can't really express it with words, and the other person might piss on it, or put it down, or laugh at it. So when I talk with people sometimes about this kind of experience, sometimes they tell me it's the first time in my life I talk about this. So I mentioned all these examples because it gives us a bit of a hint. First, that what is being taught here is actually available to us. Yeah, it's because it's already happening sometimes. Of course, it's a different thing to be in to have a stable recognition, which is even there when the situations becomes more difficult. But it's good to acknowledge, yeah, I know this from my own experience. It breaks into my life sometimes. And it is also an indication how the process of selfing and the identification with that creates so much suffering and pain. Because we know when you have a day in the mountain and you have moments like that, it's not your problems down in the valley disappear. They are still there, but they are not so important anymore. So the suffering decreases dramatically in that moment. And then, of course, if you go home, then the process of contraction, the process of me, and what about me, and what does it do with me, and it's so important because it's happening to me, and difficult feelings, they are also happening to me, and my relationship, and my job, and what about me, and so that's like the radio station of what I call the radio station of the narrative self, which is part of this default network, part of the sense of self. So that kicks in. And then we take it for real again. And we might remember, hey, this morning when I was in the mountain, I felt so different. But I just can't go back because now suddenly everything seems to be so serious again. But of course, it's possible to slowly to broaden this capacity. So the first step, identifying the object of negation. Last time I used this metaphor, it's the thief in the house. Yeah, and if you want to come to a conclusion, is there a thief in the house or not? You need to have a conceptual idea what a thief is. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to look. Yeah, and of course, we all have a sense what a thief is. So, but imagine you wouldn't know what a thief is. You wouldn't know that it is a human being and that it has 2 legs and is probably male and so on. Yeah. So you need to, if you want to search the house, and here this house which we search is the transitory network. The 5 aggregates, that's the house in which we search the thief. So that's why it's so important to this mindfulness practice of the sense of self in daily life. And then also to remind you, this thief has 3 characteristics. One is it's unified, it's one thing. We are not looking for many selves. Yeah? We are looking for one. The second, it's lasting. It's permanent. And the last, the third characteristic is it's existing inherently out of itself, self-powered as something findable. Yeah. So this is how it appears. So this is how the non-existing self appears, as if it is unified, lasting, and separate, findable as something. And that's something we need to check. Is this the case for me? Because it's also important to acknowledge maybe you have already overcome the first kind of confusions around this. If you have genuinely the experience of I am many different selves, so then you already have made a step. If you think of yourself as a process with many processes happening at the same time, and if that is your experience, then you have made a step towards the experience of selflessness, and not conceptually. No? So, like, if you have worked with your inner life, maybe in psychotherapy, of course, conceptually, you have. That's probably also how you look at your clients. You're not looking at your client and you see oneself. You see different kinds of selves, different parts. Yeah? But that's conceptually. But how is your instinctive feeling? Yeah, that's the troublemaker. You might also already you might have done this step, like kind of the mindfulness step of I am not my feelings. I am not the sensations in my body. I am that which is observing. I am the witness. I am awareness. So, I mean, that's quite, of course, liberating, but there's still an I there, right? There's still an identification. It's very subtle, but it might be still there. So if your sense of I, the identification with what you have identified, has experientially, like in your own experience, has already shifted from the content of your experience to that which is aware, that could be called like a step of awakening. Very liberating step. But there's something else, there's room for growth there. Yeah, there's room for more freedom. So it's good to check in your own experience. Where am I in this? In my own, first in my own understanding, but also check in your own experience. How strong how strong within you is still the feeling, I make the decisions in my life. I'm the decision maker. Yeah. Of course, there are decisions. Decisions are being made in this network. But there's no separate I who makes decision, who is in control, or decisions happen like thoughts happen. And they happen because as a part of the transitory network, which is connected with everything else, which is connected with your past and with your parents and with the culture and with all your life's experiences and everything. So out of that emerges a thunder, like a thunder, in the weather system. Suddenly a thunder emerges. And it's interesting, here in Scandinavia, before they started to understand what weather is, when there was a thunder, of course, they had to think there's a thunder, so someone is there. There needs to be someone making that thunder. And they made something up. They made up Thor. Yeah. And then they praised Thor and tried to influence him and were worried about him, and he had all these adventures, and it was really like an intimate relationship with Thor. They were scared of him, they praised him, they were happy with him. So it influenced their emotion very much. But there's no Thor. There's just thunder. And thunder happens, and we have understood that because it's the certain conditions coming together in this transitory network of the phenomenon weather, which is connected with the whole universe. So, boom. So exactly the same with the self. The self, the I, is exactly made up as Thor. Something extra, something not necessary, because thinking happens, thundering happens. How? Based on causes and conditions. By the way, down the drain goes the idea of free will. Free will in the sense that there's an I having free will. No. So I'm saying that exactly because it's very confrontative to hear that, and there is resistance to that, obviously. So it helps us very much to become aware of that I, which tries to keep its territory, yeah, which feels threatened by that, because the I, the imaginary I, needs the idea that it is in control, that it makes the decisions. So now that I, and we can use the three characteristics on that. So the I which makes the decision is one. It's unified. We don't have the sense that sometimes it's the 5-year-old I, sometimes it's the professional I, sometimes it's the wounded I, sometimes it's the meditator I. That's not how we feel it. It's unified. I made the decision yesterday to buy this. Or so you were 5 years old. There's a sense that it was the I. It's lasting, so there's a sense that the decision to attend this meeting, that was the same I which yesterday decided to listen to something else. So it's lasting. And the third characteristic, it seems to be that this I exists inherently. It's more than just a name. It's more than just merely labeled. It doesn't exist in name only. It is self-powered. It exists inherently. That's the term they use. It exists inherently. It's not just a hallucination and made up. It's more than that. It's real. findable. So and now we look. So the second point is to limit the possibilities where we look. So that's the second step. To limit the possibility where we look. And we can also describe it differently. I will do that tomorrow. I will stay in a very kind of superficial level right now, or a superficial level, like a beginning of this. So if that I exist as it appears, it has to exist within the body and mind. Or it has to exist outside of it. So either in the body and mind or outside, as something completely separate. These are the two possibilities. So the second possibility that it exists separate from the body and mind doesn't really make sense. Also, sometimes it almost feels like we could take away the body and mind and there would be still an I. Like when we say, I have a body. Or we could even say, oh, I wish I could have a younger body. Or I don't like my mind. I'm out of my mind. I wish another mind. So, and of course we could say, yeah, this is just what we say. Yeah, there is something there. There is an experience that it's almost, it feels a little sometimes like that there is an owner of the body. I have a body. But of course, if we reflect on it, then it's obvious. If we want to search for the thief in the house, we have to look in the rooms of the house. And yeah, maybe also the garden. But so let's take the garden as part of the house. Yeah? So we limit the possibility of the search. And that's what we do then in a meditative way. And I will lead the meditation tomorrow. So the meditation goes like this. You connect with this sense of I, a sense of me, maybe supported by some memories of being threatened or being criticized or not getting what you want or being afraid of something. So you identify that. So you get a sense of the thief, and then you look into the 5 aggregates, and we will simplify the 5 aggregates into body and mind. And then we look. So that would be like going into the house with an idea what a thief is and thoroughly look into every room. And each room you open, there's no I in there. There's no thief in there. You find many things, many processes, but you don't find a unified, lasting, separate I because it does not exist. And then in the end of the meditation, after searching, you rest in that not finding. And resting in that not finding, that's called meditation on emptiness. Yeah. So in the book, we are in chapter 11, 12, 13, and 14. And the way I describe now the meditation is different than it is being presented by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So, but we will talk about that tomorrow. Yeah. So this was a bit of a simplification, but very, very helpful. This meditation on searching in the five aggregates, in this transitory collection, in this transitory network, and finding many things, finding many processes coming and going, but not finding a center. Finding maybe a sense of I, but that's not an I, that's a sense of I, that's a process. Okay, so is there any question, comment? I think tomorrow I will leave someone asked, how do we keep memories? I keep wondering about this question. How do we keep memories? Yeah, I mean, it's the same. We conclude because there's memories, there must be someone making these memories. But memories is just another process. Something happens and a mental factor, one of the 51 mental factors, becomes aware of it and it's stored. So all that happens. So there are memories. Obviously, you can remember, there can be a memory of yesterday. But the conclusion we do is, okay, there are memories, so there must be someone having these memories. Yeah. So you can explain the process of memories and how they are created without referring to someone. Yeah. You can explain the process of thundering without referring to someone doing it. I think it's in the beginning, it's a bit difficult to kind of feel how this will solve all your problems, but it does. Yeah, because the problem with the problems is that it is your problems. I mean, you can handle the problems of a distant relative much better than your own, because they are not yours. Yeah. If it's your children, then it's different because you have included them into the sense of I. Yeah. So the problems of your children, they are as important to you as your own problems. So because I have children, they are mine. So their problems are my problems. Yeah, so is there any other comment, question? Yeah, Ali.
I really appreciate that you brought up the default mode network
Mm.
and how that helps me to understand a little bit more, but to see the process, so to be able to better separate from that. And one of the pieces that I lean into a lot around the default mode network is my understanding of how it's a survival instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's how we survived.
Yes.
And it's literally trying to keep us safe.
Mm.
So that helps me because it also helps me separate from that.
Yes.
And recognize, oh, this is just survival, keeping me safe. And that's so different from thriving, from happiness,
Mm.
from those things that we all seek.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you
Yes.
for bringing that in.
Yeah. And also what is really helpful, and one could use the same this word default network. we don't need to look at this process with aggression, but we can look at this process with gratefulness. It's a protective process. So that would, this avoid this pitfall of what other people say, oh, you need to overcome the ego, and the ego is the bad guy, and oh, this is my ego, yeah, and I hate my ego, or something like that. I mean, first, there is obviously no ego, but ego could be a name what one could use for the default network for this process. So there can be appreciation and fascination and like, wow, curiosity. Yeah? And the other thing is also connected with that. To develop this is a normal and necessary and healthy process in a child. It has to happen. If it doesn't happen, and it's disturbed, you're going to have problems, and you might need to spend many years in your life to get a healthy sense of self, knowing your boundaries, knowing what you need, learning to say no, knowing to distinguish between your feelings and the feelings of other people. So this process is not an evil process. It's a necessary, healthy process for a human being to develop, and to develop into a person who is, how to say, functional, or who can relate to others, who can. The problem is the identification with it. And that it becomes like so solid, it's like, what is it? We put layer and layer upon it, layer of I am this and that, and I have this experience, and I'm shy, and I'm this, and I'm that. So it becomes like this solid thing, and it's not experienced as a flexible process. And then when we say I and feel I, it lands in this kind of more and more stiff thing. Yes, Pat.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Stephan, for this bit of conversation, because I realize that's why I'm very resistant to the thief in the house, because I feel as though, it's like the doctor in the house, or the nurse in the house, or the
that's right.
teddy bear in the house. I don't know.
Yeah.
Some kind of protector. So when I even hear, the object of negation, I'm thinking, oh my God, those thousands of dollars I have poured out in psychodynamic therapy. So thank you. This is very, it's clarifying, and
it's good to reflect. It's really good to reflect upon that. So there's kindness is always the best way to go with anything anyway, yeah. But to appreciate the troublemaking aspect of it, and the necessary and protective part of it. Yeah? So, yes, Philip. You need to unmute.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Do you think we simply outgrow our ego?
We could, maybe we could, but what can happen if we don't look and we don't investigate, that it becomes more and more stiff, more and more bitter, more and more inflexible. Yeah. Sometimes we can recognize that in other people. They get older and older, and they become more and more contracted in that image. And there's but outgrow could be a kind word, so to outgrow it, to leave it, where it is appropriate. And there's also, we could also talk about something like the social self, so to leave it where it's appropriate, but becoming more aware that there is that it is a process, and that there is nothing behind it. There's no core behind it.
So sometimes you hear the definition of childhood to adulthood is where you make the transition and you stop taking care of yourself and you begin to take care of others. It seems to me in some way this is similar to outgrowing one's ego.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. The problem is, or a possible trap in what you described is that the taking care of others, it doesn't come from a healthy place, but actually comes from an exaggerated sense of self and woundedness. So helping others and taking care of others is not necessarily a sign for a growing mental health or for a genuine opening of the heart. It can be also a sign for self-neglect and self-rejection and what Trungpa Rinpoche calls idiot compassion. Yeah. So, but otherwise, it's true that if the path of compassion, the path of service, which comes from fullness and from a healthy sense of self, without any agenda, is part of this process of letting go of the identification with solid separate me. It is, yeah. But you can't say from the outside, at least superficially. I mean, if you know a person well and you observe a person for a longer time, then you will recognize there's something not healthy here. And the person will also exhaust herself or himself, because there's an agenda behind that kind of helping. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. So just let's take just a few, half a minute or something like that. And I would like to remind you that Lama Zopa often says the most powerful way to increase our capacity to wake up, to accumulate merit and to purify, is to reflect on emptiness. It's more powerful than making offerings and prostrations and things like that. So it's really powerful to come together as a group and to ask these questions, maybe raise some doubt. Yeah, so that would be already great. There's the doubt starts to, yeah, maybe there's something here. So let's take a moment to feel the connectedness with each other and with our surroundings. And then let the goodness of this meeting the hope and inspiration of this meeting, the inspiration of this meeting, just naturally, it's like very natural gesture. Let it radiate out into the group here, and then into your flat and the people you live with and your neighbors. And maybe you want to include some people who are in crisis right now, some people you worry about. Just let them bathe in the light of our meeting, wishing them well. And then also the Shantideva Center, and then all the activities of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa. Without them, we wouldn't be here. And then also into your own future, so that this potential of this meeting drops into the ocean of bodhicitta, lasting forever. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephan. See you tomorrow, everybody.
Yes, see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephan.
Bye.
Great.